Hi, I'm Megan.
And I'm Rob. You're watching
Lists of 13.
Here you'll find lists of various topics, all in sets of 13.
If you have tristodectophobia, an irrational fear of the number 13, this video may not be for you. Otherwise, enjoy the list.
Today we're doing a list that I would call not exactly fun, and really I look at the companies that are on this list and it's like, get it together guys, you need to do better. It is a long list though, so I won't say anything else and we'll just get right into the list. Today we bring you 13 vehicles that have been or should have been recalled.
Number 1, the Fort Pinto. On June 9th, 1978, Ford Motor Company agreed to recall 1.5 million Ford Pintos and 30,000 Mercury Bobcat sedans and hatchback models for their fuel tank design defects, which made the vehicles susceptible to fire in the event of a moderate speed rear-end collision. The action was the result of investigations by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration's, for the rest of the video called NHTSA, Office of Defect Investigations, sparked by a petition from the Center for Auto Safety, publicly generated by a national publication expose of the hazard. Mother Jones News Magazine, Pinto Madness by Mark Dowie, September-October 1977. The action was also spurred by publicity over the largest punitive damages awarded by a California jury to a young man who had been severely injured in a Pinto fuel tank fire, Grimshaw versus Ford. In 1973, Ford's Environmental and Safety Engineering Division developed a cost-benefit analysis entitled Fatalities Associated with Crash-Induced Fuel Leakage in Fires. The conclusion was that for $11, a modification could have been done to make the Pinto have the same chance of catching fire as a normal car, but it wasn't worth the money.
Not cool at all, Ford. Not cool at all.
No, that's despicable. I can't believe that they would not find the benefit of people not catching on fire over $11.
Really is a pretty sad thing. Number 2, Chevrolet GMC Square Body. 1973 to 1987, General Motors full-size pickups, cab and chassis trucks, and some 1988 to 91 dual cab or RV chassis is the worst auto crash fire defect in the history of the United States, according to U.S. Department of Transportation. This is because of their saddlebag tanks located on the outside of the truck's frame. Over 2,000 people were killed in fire crashes involving these trucks from 1973 through 2009. This is more than 20 times as many fatalities as in the infamous Ford Pinto. Despite a voluntary recall request from the NHTSA, GM refused. GM has paid more than $500 million in settlements to victims because of the fuel tank defect on the 1970s and 80s era pickup trucks. There are now aftermarket adaptations to fix this scary issue.
That's really crazy to think that a company thought it was a good idea to position fuel tanks on the outside of the frame where they could easily be hit in an accident, resulting in these fires is just pure negligence.
Agreed.
And with over 2,000 people being killed due to these fires and refusing a recall, that's just ridiculous.
Absolutely agree.
Number 3, various Toyota and Lexus vehicles. Toyota has long enjoyed a sterling reputation for the quality and longevity of its vehicles. However, the Toyota brand suffered a serious blow in the 2000s when it was found that the gas pedals on several of the company's most popular car models could become stuck in the down position, causing fatal runaway acceleration. Toyota's subsidiary brand, Lexus, was also affected by this problem. Adding insult to injury, Toyota executives at first blamed all-weather floor mats for the issue, saying that they were prone to jamming the gas pedal. However, when the problem continued, Toyota was forced to change the pedal's design completely, resulting in an international recall of 9 million cars at the cost to the company of billions of dollars. Toyota and Lexus are only now starting to recover financially from this massive recall.
Do you remember when that happened?
I do.
It was craziness.
Absolutely. And then I just can't get over companies blaming it on stupid crap like floor mats.
Yeah.
But when you realize it's going to cost them billions of dollars to recall and fix an issue, I suppose floor mats seemed like the better scapegoat.
Exactly. Number 4, 1991 to 2004, Fords with cruise control. Texas Instruments had long made the cruise control switches for various Ford vehicles, including cars, trucks, and SUVs. However, over the years, these cruise control switches were proven to be faulty in that they would short circuit and cause fires. From 1996 1996 to 2009, the Ford Motor Company was forced to recall cars, trucks, and SUVs from the years 1991 through 2004. The total number of recalled vehicles reached 14.9 million and led to major financial losses for the company. Equally bad, the recurring problem wasn't good for public perceptions of Ford's quality. Ford has since severed ties with Texas Instruments.
Well, that definitely makes sense. Now, I really can't believe that they had to do recalls from 1996 to 2009 for their vehicles from 91 to 2004. Like, if you started doing recalls in 1996, don't you think you would sever your relationship or figure out what to do instead of continuing through 2009 for your 2004 models? Like, why would you go another 8 years with faulty product?
That's a really good question.
Hopefully somebody, a bigwig, an executive at Ford, has asked that question so that they don't do it again. Number 5, 70s Fords with automatic transmissions. On June 10th, 1980, NHTSA made an initial determination of defect in Ford vehicles with a C3, C4, C6, FMX, and Jatco automatic transmission. The alleged problem with the transmissions is that a safety defect permits them to slip accidentally from park to reverse. As of the date of determination, NHTSA has received 23,000 complaints about Ford transmissions, including reports of 6,000 accidents, 1,710 injuries, and 98 fatalities, primarily the young and old, unable to save themselves, directly attributable to the transmission slippage.
Again, not cool at all. Number 6, 1970s and 80s Chevrolet Malibu. In 1981, the Chevy Malibu was subject to an extensive recall after it was learned that a loose suspension bolt was causing the car's steering columns to become disabled. This led to drivers losing control of their cars as they drove them. A total of 6 million Chevy Malibu cars were recalled.
That's crazy. The other thing I think is really interesting is if you had such a bad reputation of 6 million cars that had to be recalled because the steering column just went nuts on its own, why would you keep bringing the Malibu model back? I mean, I know it's an oldie but a goodie, as many people see, but I think most people get excited about the original era of Malibus, not the ones with the steering column issues, and certainly not current day Malibus.
True. I guess they just like the name though.
I guess. Number 7, 90s Ford Explorers. On March 6th, 2000, NHTSA began an investigation concerning the high incidence of tire failures and accidents of Ford Explorers and other light trucks and SUVs fitted with Firestone radial ATX, ATX2, and Wilderness tires. On August 9th, Firestone recalled all ATX and ATX2 tires and all Wilderness AT tires manufactured in Decatur, Illinois. Firestone argued that vehicle weight, tire design, and low recommended inflation pressure. Publicly, Firestone argued that Ford's recommended 26 psi inflation pressure was too low and should have been at least 30 psi. The Ford Explorer was first offered for sale in March 1990. The Explorer was originally designed by taking an SUV cabin and attaching it to a Ford Ranger undercarriage. This cut the cost of producing the new Explorer because Ford could use existing facilities, parts, and robots and would not have to design everything from scratch. This created problems though, because the Explorer added more upper cabin weight to the already somewhat higher pickup chassis. It had a higher center of gravity and was more likely to roll over in the event of an accident. It was also more likely to sway during sharp turns because it used the same leaf spring suspension that is found on the Ranger. The likelihood of a crash and the likelihood of injuries and fatalities from a crash were greater in an SUV experiencing a tread separation than on a pickup truck. Ford came up with 3 options for correcting this problem. Use shorter suspension springs to lower the vehicle half an inch in the front and 1 inch in the back, lower the tire pressure to give the Explorer a more car-like ride, or widen the wheelbase by 2 inches, which would involve a substantial redesign. After the Explorer rolled over in the company test prior to production, Ford decided to use the lower suspension and remove air from the tires to 26 psi compared to 35 psi for the same tires on the Ranger.
So basically, if you drive around with a car that has tires that are not inflated to what they should be, you're going to ruin the tires. So the biggest reason that that these tires were being ruined on the Ford Explorers is because Ford said to ride around with them with less air pressure than they're supposed to have.
Lovely that they made that decision for a Firestone product when they are in fact Ford and not Firestone. And yet who has the bad rap from that situation?
Firestone.
Yeah, certainly not Ford.
Number 8, the Audi 5000. It was first introduced in 1978 and was manufactured until 1986. Sales were decent at first, as Americans seemed to appreciate the luxury associated with Audi vehicles. Then they took exception to the fact that the Audi 5000 was prone to unintended acceleration. Beginning in the early 80s, officials in Washington, D.C. began receiving reports that the Audi 5000 would suddenly and uncontrollably accelerate after being shifted out of park. An extensive investigation was undertaken, and the Audi 5000 became the subject of not one, not two, but 3 massive recalls carried out in 1982, 1983, and 1987.
Talk about not being able to fix the problem.
And really, there were a lot of people that ended up dead because of those cars.
That's crazy. Also, as a side note, when I see Audi 5000, I just want to say something like Audi 5000. It rhymes. It's not reasonable, but it's fun. Number 9. 1965 to 1969 General Motors V8 cars. GM cars made between 1965 and 1969 and equipped with a V8 engine had a fairly significant problem. The rubber parts in the vehicle's engine mounts would give out, causing the engine to break free and pull open the throttle. This led to rapid, unexpected, and uncontrollable acceleration. Even worse, this problem would also disable the brakes on the cars, making them almost impossible to stop as they accelerated out of control. By 1971, 172 cases of engine mount failure had been reported across the U.S., causing 63 accidents and 18 serious injuries. GM initially resisted the recall. Their president at the time, Edward Cole, actually said that the failing engine mount issue was no more serious than a flat tire. Government officials strongly disagreed and forced GM to issue a recall for nearly 7 million vehicles.
I'm going to say that this Edward Cole guy really isn't very bright, thinking that not being able to stop a car is similar to having a flat tire. Like, really, what a jerk.
Agreed. And while I don't think that this is always the case, I really find that presidents and CEOs have a tendency to say some of the most asinine things to downplay major issues within a company. I don't know if that's like part of the handbook that they get or what it is. Really unfortunate though. And that's terrifying. I mean, if you can't use the brakes and you're accelerating out of control, I mean, do you hope that there's just like a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man in your way and that's how you're going to stop the car?
Crazy stuff. Number 10, 1980s and 90s Hondas. In the early 1990s, it was revealed that there was a major problem with seat belts in many of their cars. Nearly 4 million Honda vehicles were recalled because their seat belts provided little to no protection. That's because the release button on the seat belts would crack for no apparent reason and become completely unusable. This proved to be a frightening situation for drivers and passengers who were involved in a motor vehicle accident. Fortunately, Honda did the right thing and issued a voluntary recall and replaced all the faulty seat belts. The company even helped publicize the recall so people far and wide knew about it.
Well, maybe I should retract my previous comments about presidents and CEOs because that seems like a company that did the right thing. Congratulations, Honda. Number 11, the first generation Pontiac Fiero. The Fiero would randomly erupt into flames, and it happened close to 300 times. This was due to a couple of different reasons. The most common was for oil leakage, but many suffered from faulty wiring. What a mess. Surprise, your car is going to start on fire.
So wait a minute, you're telling me that a General Motors car would be leaking a bunch of oil? What a surprise that is, right?
I don't know. I guess it's nearly as surprising for all of the different companies that have suffered from sudden and unexplained acceleration.
Number 12, the 2017 and 18 Chrysler Pacifica plug-in hybrid minivan. 16,741 of its Chrysler Pacifica plug-in hybrid minivans were recalled over a problem with potential fires. It's possible for a fire to happen even when the ignition is off, according to documents filed with the NHTSA. The documents did not give details about where the fire was located, but they caught fire.
Well, I guess, honestly, if we look at some of the issues with electric vehicles, fires do seem like a common problem. But then again, they have giant battery packs, so batteries and fires seem to kind of be a thing.
I mean, it's a little different though. You've got like the Teslas that sometimes catch on fire. And the thing is, Tesla is very clear that you're not supposed to leave the thing charging overnight, because the problem with them occurs when the battery gets too charged, and that's when it will catch fire. I'm
picturing like a battery monster, like growing and getting like extra energy, and all of a sudden it's just like roar, and it starts on fire. I'm a little confused by that actually though, because you would think that if it's caused by overcharging, they would be starting on fire in homes, which I do realize has happened. But there's also been a number of fires that have happened when the cars have crashed, which I guess maybe the batteries being impacted by the crash could cause that. But I mean, there's been some well-publicized accidents where there have been Tesla crashes with fires so hot that they can't even get them put out.
That's true and pretty crazy.
And number 13, 1971 to 2003 Dodge Maxi van and the 1978 to 2014 Ford Econoline 15-passenger vans. These 15-passenger vehicles have the highest incidence of single vehicle rollover accidents in this country. From 1982 through 2006, there were 670 fatal rollovers of 15-passenger vans in which an occupant of the van was killed. These crashes killed 1,062 persons and incapacitatingly injured an additional 1,867. The problem with these vehicles is that they're really designed for hauling cargo, not people. Because of the design flaws in the vans, 45% of the weight of the vehicle is distributed to the left rear tire. This causes the tire to generate excessive heat. The failure is increased exponentially when the tire is underinflated, as many are. The E350 requires 50 psi on the front tires and 80 psi on the rear tires. This is the only vehicle on the road requiring different pressures on the front and rear tires. These tires often have the tread separation blow out and cause the vehicle to barrel roll. This can cause the passengers to be crushed inside the van, to be ejected and crushed by the van, or other serious and fatal deaths. Even if the tire doesn't shred, they're just very, very squirrely, hard to handle vehicles, says Thomas Fahini, a former Ford vice president. They're tall and heavy, and the center of gravity is very high. As each passenger takes a seat, the center of gravity goes even higher. To learn more about the dangers of these vans, please go to vanangels.com.
And I can say this one is pretty close to me because of the fact I have an acquaintance that I knew who actually died in one of these vehicles. But it's really, really sad to think about. I mean, they knew about this back in the 70s that it was a flawed design, and they didn't stop producing them until the early 2000s for Dodge and the late 2000s for Ford. And the other thing, they could have just been like General Motors, who extended the wheelbase, and by extending the wheelbase made them a lot safer than the Ford or Dodge vans.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that you would produce a vehicle for 36 years when you know that it has that type of problem without doing anything to fix it.
But as we've seen before in this list, the companies are really way more concerned about their profits than they are people's lives, which is a really sad and horrible thing to say, but at the same time, it just seems like the truth.
Absolutely. And I mean, to some point, you can understand why some recalls, they would try to figure out what else to do, because they are a business and the intent is to make a profit and take care of its employees, etc. But when people are knowingly getting killed, it just seems incredibly wrong.
You know, one of the things they can actually do with the Ford or Dodge vans to make them way safer, if they actually take the single rear wheel in the back and make it have dual rear wheels, they look kind of dumb, but they're a whole lot safer at that point.
Absolutely. And while they're no longer being manufactured, the sad thing is you could go around town to churches, private schools, other businesses, and you can still see these on the road today. Thankfully, a lot of them are now hauling cargo and being used correctly, but you still know that people are using them as people movers, and that's terrifying because people's lives are at stake.
So for all of the vehicles that we had on the list today, if you have one of them, make sure to modify it in a way where it's no longer a death trap, and be safe.
Thanks for watching our video of 13 vehicles that have been recalled or should have been recalled.
If you have anything to add or anything to say, put it in the comments.
Thanks again for watching. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up.
And if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to get notified when we post new videos.
After subscribing, ring the bell on YouTube or click follow next to our name on Facebook, then click edit settings. Choose how often you'd like to be notified of new videos. We hope you choose all videos.
After that, tell all your friends.
We hope you enjoy your day and keep being kind to one another.